I perhaps didn't have the best wardrobe choice this morning, because I'm like, I have nowhere to put this. But it's okay. I'm just going to sit here delicately with my mic.
That's a women problem.
I thought about it. Okay. So thank you. I hope you had an excellent break, got an opportunity to talk to these wonderful women beside you, around you. For this afternoon, we have another panel, which I have the absolute pleasure of moderating. And then following that, we're going to have a workshop. We're going to get nitty-gritty about AI and use cases. And then we have a networking. So let me start by thanking and welcoming this wonderful panel, starting with Sandy Jones, who is, and I'm going to read out your title so I don't screw it up. So we've got Head of Corporate Technology at Interact. We've got Allison Stockdale, who is a Technical Manager Engineering at Lululemon. And we have Daniela Yance, a Director of Digital Ops and Strategy at The Source. So thank you, ladies. Thank you. So in true fashion of women and adaptability, at the break, I just said to them, we're going to pivot just a little bit, because I thought the conversation that we just had was so meaningful, and we love the interactivity. And so we're really going to focus on each of our panelists talking a bit about AI and how it's used. And we will also, after each panelist is done, maybe pause for any questions or comments from the audience. So if I may, I'm actually going to start, Sandy, because you're right beside me. And I've had the privilege of getting to know Sandy over the last, I'd say, half year. We met at a Women in Technology, and I've really been impressed by your lifelong passion for learning and change. And AI is certainly changing our world. So maybe I could start with you, and if you could talk about your perspective of AI and change.
Easy peasy. Things working, right?
Yes, you're good.
Carrie's alluded to the fact, if you ever look at my career, it kind of looks like this. And I've never had a goal, only a next step, and all like that. But what has been central has been, there's new technology, it's going to allow somebody to do something different. How can we make that happen? So whether I'm sitting on engineering or marketing or wherever, that's kind of where I live. So this is very exciting for me. And when I'm looking at use cases in my current role or thinking about other people's roles, I always start with this kind of idea of 3 knowledge domains that the previous panel was kind of alluding to. Like, one is what I know, and then there's all kinds of tools to help me know more, but then I have to process everything that's in my head to come up with the best decision, the best plan, the best document. Then there's what the rest of the world knows, and ChatGPT is like that on steroids. So instead of, whether it's, it's a template machine for sure. I want to hire somebody, I want to start a plan, I want to tell a new employee, like, these are the kinds of things you're going to need to look at. I ask ChatGPT a couple of questions, it generates an outline, I tweak it, and I go. And so it saves me a lot of time. Before, I would have to go either from my head or I'd Google, and I'd try to decide which documents I find on Google, get my pieces, and there's a lot of, it's just, you end up, okay, well, these people seem to have it, I'll just use theirs. So the ability to kind of distill the common wisdom, and it's also really good at saying, yeah, there's no consensus on that, so you want to ask a different question. But bringing that in. The third domain is where I think it gets really exciting, and that's inside the company, because there is a ton of knowledge, and knowledge management is one of my teams, and there's a ton of unstructured data out there. There's documentation, you've got process flows and technical diagrams and ServiceNow tickets and Word documents, SharePoints, all that stuff is out there. And to me, the promise of Gen AI is that we're going to be able to start tapping into more of that. So whether I'm looking at when we launch a new product and things change in terms of processes, things change in terms of people and so on, Who here has documentation that's fully up to date all the time and correct and accurate? Anybody? That's the one that kind of leaps off the page for me. If we can, and we haven't gone there yet, but we're trying to figure out how we can tap into this to really harness some of that. We want to be able to have dynamic documentation that says, you know, you're new here, that's okay. Here's what you need to know. Oh, you're a PM and you're a tech, here's what you need to know. So, I mean, we could talk for the rest of the day about just that. But that, I think, is one that kind of everybody can probably relate to, whether you're on the tech side, the business side, whether you're dealing with data or infrastructure. But the other piece of it that I think is kind of magical too is when we look at all the communication that we all create every day. And at Interac, I have an amazing luxury. I have a small but existing technical writing team. So I no longer have to just say, engineers, write it better, think about your audience. And they're like, I don't even understand the question. So, you know, but my tech writing team doesn't scale to all the stuff we have to do. So we're very selective, and we can't hire just a bunch of writers. But if we can get that team leveraging AI, especially with the internal stuff, then we can start to, you know, just think about, we're trying to have the syntax and the terminology and the structure of documents and all that making sense across the whole organization. There's not one person in the organization that has a view to all of that in the first place, and we don't have time to pull it together. So if we can find, you know, specific cases within there to start chipping away at it and bring things to be visible. I'm sure everybody's had this experience. I joined Interac about 8 months ago, so I'm just, my new guy card's wearing it a little bit. But, you know, you come in and you ask any person in the organization any question, whether it's about the team, about the projects, about the product, it doesn't matter. You're going to get an answer that's based on what they know, not what the entire organization knows. And that's what I'm trying to tap into with most of the ways I'm looking at Gen AI.
Right. And I think, you know, following on that, right, developer experience is definitely a way. I think it was Palaviv who was talking about Copilot, right, and using that as part of helping. And I think a lot of people are seeing it. I do think that it's super important, especially when there are big brands at place, to interact. Lululemon, I mean, these are really known brands that we want to start safe. And so I think that's why these discussions are so important, is where do we start? What is considered safe, and what's a good use case that, you know, certainly as an AI practice, we try and say, start here. You know, like let's start small, let's be successful, and then move forward. So I love that answer, Sandy.
Let me just add the two things I forgot to mention, one of which you're kind of touching on, and especially if you're in a regulated business, but pretty much any company of any reasonable size has data classifications. If it has this in it, it's private. If it has this in it, it's confidential, and so on. And we all train every employee in the organization on what those rules are, and then hope to God they remember them and apply them to their documents. So if we can have an AI agent that knows those rules and goes in and says, like, they don't have to know what department you're in, it's just you put out a document that has this in it, we're going to lock it down as confidential. And, you know, won't be right all the time, but it will at least catch a lot of those. So that, I think, on the compliance side is a huge one as well. And for the techs in the room, we've talked about asset management and how important asset management is to not breaking your IT environment. And every time we make a change on any kind of technology, we're starting with, okay, what could be impacted? What will be impacted? Who's relying on this? And again, we're working largely from people's brains, or if you have a CMDB, a configuration database, you know, with some of those mappings are, some of them are done by discovery, but a lot of them are done by human beings saying, no, this thing supports that product. And when we look at like the magnitude of that over a large environment, it just, your head spins. We'll never get the mappings complete and right. So if we can find a way to tap into that with Gen AI to look at, because the ServiceNow is, are people familiar with ticketing systems and enough techs in the room? So ServiceNow tickets have a whole lot of unstructured data, and I can guarantee you there's one in there that says, this device had a problem and it affected these 5 other devices. But we can't get at that easily. We try, and ServiceNow has great reports and so on, but it's just the edge. And I think if we can treat that all as unstructured data, throw AI onto it, we'll get a lot more meaningful information out of there.
And getting that value is what we're talking about, right? So as leaders, what we're trying to do is use the technology, be the stewards that bring that value into the organization. And I think with that, maybe I can move to Allison. You are part of a incredible brand. I mean, who here doesn't love their Lulus? Come on, ladies. COVID, did anybody wear anything else? So you have the honor of running engineering there, and can you talk to us a bit about the retailer, the engineering practice, and maybe where you see some trends and intersections? I think your mic. Oh, yeah, there's a little button right at the Better? Yep. Okay, there you go. Thank you.
Yeah, I can unquestionably say, Lululemon, I worked there for 3 years, and I remember it was 6 months in, and I get this massive package, and you get a discount, right? My husband was like, Allie, no, I counted them this morning, you have 15 pairs of pants. And I was like, no, honey, there are sweatpants, there are leggings for around the house, there are leggings for working out, and then there are leggings for special occasions that, don't fit into a category. It was like, okay, I give up. Keep buying. I kind of think I might fit this into a bit of a story that relates more to women in tech. So I started out kind of in the mobile space, but not in a management position, and then moved out and now have been returned into being the owner of Lululemon's mobile application. And they were like, okay, this is a big opportunity. You now have 75 people reporting into you. You got this, woman in tech. All men. Genuinely, there wasn't a single woman. And I remember going to one of our first demo meetings and being like, hey guys, what are the things that we're benchmarking against to be able to say this is what this product is actually going to, how we want it to perform, what we see as the KPIs for success? And they were like, oh, image quality, scroll. And don't get me wrong, in the iOS space, in the mobile space, this is incredibly important. I was like, why are we not looking at anything that relates to the incredible research we have on our users? And we kind of went down this, and this is all during that time where, of course, because I'm a woman and I don't actually come from a computer science background, everyone's like, could she do the job? And I remember going through one of our first kind of iterations of just an idea I had worked with on a couple women we'd brought in, and the idea was based on if you're scrolling our mobile app and we have the data to understand and interpret that you are on average a size 8 or a size 10, that you on average will go for products that are a little bit longer because perhaps you have longer legs, or you gravitate towards products that will not show your tummy versus some people who will gravitate to those. And we started to work with whether we could leverage generative AI to understand the attributes that we could put to a persona to say, oh, you know what, for me, for instance, I have thick thighs. Hello, I can't believe I'm saying this in public. And I have longer legs. And we started to try to, acquire these attributes when it comes to purchasing behavior and start to display on our product pages and the initial page when you open the application to show you a photo of someone who's probably a similar size to you, show you a product that is longer because you like longer things, or shorter because you like shorter things, or, product made for women with a shorter or longer torso. And we've started to try to move. And I'm just calling out some of this is generative, some of this is the most hard-coded, janky stuff you've ever seen. But to me, that's the beauty of how quickly technology changes. That's the beauty of this mess of us being half of our foot in the door of saying that I do something that feels progressive and representative of women, and then half like, I inherited a code base that has a lot of problems. But, you know, I think specifically, I feel very, very privileged and lucky to work in an engineering role and a management role and a strategic role at somewhere like Lululemon, because when I talk about having these problems, I swear every person here was like, oh, thank God. and coming into a space with only men, then being like, no, we don't need to put that much time and energy into that. And I'm like, oh, really? Have you ever been a woman trying to buy, like, stretchy pants? No? Okay.
Your lived experience.
And I think that really brings back, we've talked a lot about bias, right? And I think, I wanted to just make sure that everybody in the room understood what we meant by bias, right? So when we talk about the data, right, when we talk about what's shown on a website, it's trained, the data is trained, right, which means it looks at all the past data, it's kind of putting it all together, and then it's suggesting the best next thing. And so the problem, of course, is if that data is of a certain gender, of a certain size, it's you get bias. And so what I love about your story is, first, the personal experience of bias, which, a lot of women in tech, I mean, it's unfortunate that we faced it, right? That, can you really do the job? I tell this often, like, so comp sci degree, worked my entire career in technology. I can't tell you how many times people have asked if I'm technical enough for a job. And I'm always like, no one asks the guy if he's technical enough. It's always, and it's kind of crazy, but we live those bias. And I think by sharing those stories and having them together, we're able to say, well, what do you say in that moment? Because what you don't want to be is afterwards, you're like, shoot, I should have said this, right? So I think it's having that snappy response. So thank you for that. Okay, Daniela, you are also digital with strategy and operations. AI is coming, and I know that it's a big part of your world is to be that leader and bring that leadership thought into your organization. How are you thinking about Gen AI, and what can you share with the group?
Okay, well, my name is Daniela. I guess nobody introduced themselves too much, so I don't want to spend too much time myself. I'm very diverse. I'm Venezuelan Canadian. I've been in Canada for 16 years. My background is computer science, but I always say from a long time ago. It still buys me some brownie points with IT or with new people. If I need it, I show the card. Oh, because I'm a bachelor in computer science, whatever. But it doesn't really mean anything. I've been surprised that the people that I found had more adoption in my circle, professional circle of Gen AI, are marketers, not the technology people. I haven't heard one person in my IT team talking to me about Gen AI at all. However, some of my peers in marketing, in brand marketing, by the way, now I gave it away, because if you look me up, you'll find the person and know that. Anyways, they're doing anything from writing bridesmaid speech for a wedding, and their best friend doesn't know. But they did the research. They said, no, I did the research. I fed it good information. I edited. I tweaked it. I removed all the things. Like, I really meant the briefing of ChatGPT was pretty comprehensive. And I have another coworker that wrote 2 children's books and is doing the illustrations with another creative person. So I definitely don't think this is a technology people thing at all. And that's exactly the point, I think, that we don't have this kind of niche of, we're the technologists. We're the ones that know technology more than anybody else, because now it's pretty open. And it's been for a while. The lines between business and technology are so blurry. My IT partners, if they're good, they're very savvy in business and business KPIs and business outcomes, et cetera. You don't want to work with somebody in IT that doesn't have those capabilities. And similarly, most people in any company has to have a minimum understanding of technology. So it's not as niche as it used to be. So for us, the way that what I'm more interested in is that cultural change, that mindset change from I'm really afraid of this change because change is uncomfortable, like you said, Christina, and this is I don't want to get into it. It's cheating. It's not unique, and I'm gonna also lose my job. Changing that mindset into this thing that I coined in another event without intending to, that is the human enhancer. That is, how is it making me better? Like, I really don't have time. For example, I'm not proud, but I'm a very slow reader. I don't read. I'm doing audiobooks instead, and it's also hard. Is this research power on steroids? Is this saving me the time to consume all the information that is out there and give it to me in a way? I actually briefed ChatGPT. I told it everything about me because I don't care about my privacy. And I said everything, my age, etc. And I said, please, succinct. Like, I can't read 3 pages of content. And ChatGPT is very good at giving me literally bullet points only. And if I want it long, I say, could you make it longer if it's going to be for something else? So I'm more interested in the cultural change. I'm more interested in the scrappy. We're a very nimble team. And I think even though obviously there's a technology aspect of onboarding vendors that are going to be leveraging this technology for major things for us, like product recommendations, you name it. I'm more interested in how are we going to literally make everybody an expert in our company to really leverage in their role so they don't feel threatened but empowered by this technology, making them better selves. And that's a hard one because we do have people that their jobs are mechanical, and it's scary. For those people, it's going to be scary. But even for those people, I think we can figure out a way that they can. This is going to save you time. Nobody likes repetitive that much. So it's like, oh, you can do this in half the time and then use this other time to train or to switch jobs or to use your brain. Most people want to use their brain. They want to contribute. They don't want to do mindless jobs. So I think that's what I'm very, very curious. But I'm researching. Right now I'm in research mode. I'm just learning, listening in events. That's what I'm doing right now. I'm trying to understand what is the shiny ball and what is the actual value and how can I bring it in. I'm early. I'm crawling.
And I think that, a lot of people, even if, you use AI every day, I think that the pace of the change of AI and generative AI, we all need to be in that, of learning and understanding and what is the value that we're going to bring. Because when we are in an organization and we choose to bring forward an idea, that idea comes very closely associated with who we are too, right? And so you do have to really think about what is the use case that I'm bringing, what are all the avenues of that to ensure that it's reflective of what we want to do. And that brings me to the next kind of questions that I'll ask each of you, which is, we have heard some pretty scary, I would even say, stats about women in technology, about women leading technology, about the percentage of women. And I think that good organizations foster, a culture of inclusivity, of creativity, and by doing that, we encourage more women to come into the fields. And I would like to ask each of our panelists, and I'll start with yourself, Sandy, what do you think that either you're doing or you would like to be doing to help that inclusivity and that creativity for women to flourish, whether it be at this organization or perhaps in one of your past?
Well, I'm pretty well known for a few views on this, one of which is most of the efforts that I've seen or participated in to get more women into the funnel is we take girls and we teach them how to write code. And they come away going like, okay, now I know how to write code, and I know I never want to do that for my job, so I'm not going to tech, right? Instead of making that one of a bunch of tools in the toolbox, like you can learn code later, I've only ever learned enough code that I can understand what the coders are talking about and sort of see the limitations, but you don't want to ever, push something that I wrote. But we need to sort of find a way to tap into all the different skill sets that go into tech. And to Daniela's point, the line is blurring between business and tech, and a lot of our young users are way more technical than some of our heads of tech, and but they're not necessarily technical in the sense we think of knowing the mechanics and which flag we want to switch on this routing protocol. Nobody cares. We've got people who love doing that, and most of them are men. I love them. I know a few women who like doing that. Great. But I think overall, on average, if we talk to the human side, and I'll take cybersecurity is one. Like, you talk to any men or boys, like, oh yeah, I want to do cybersecurity, and you talk to most women and girls, it's like, yeah, I don't think I want to do that. And yet, it's all about people. It's about the bad actors trying to get away with something. It's about individuals getting taken advantage of and tricked. And like if we start putting the technical stuff in those terms that we can, it's like, oh, I see that in myself. I can see how that would be fun and exciting to work on, as opposed to how to configure a firewall, because who cares?
Right. It's how do you take that knowledge and make it the why to it, right? Like, and who doesn't want to be like, I don't know, I was thinking about Men in Black with those cool little suits and you're, running around. Yeah.
My son is 16. My daughter's 14. My son is very interested in business. Neither of them want to code. My daughter, really no interest right now. And I'm curious for all of the women in this room to understand if anyone has been successful at encouraging young women down this path into tech, and how do we make it more interesting and attractive to them? Your point of, I don't want to code. I don't want to sit in the room.
That's the thing. Don't call it tech. Just don't call it tech. It's just life. Like, it's just business, right? Like, it's about, if you focus more on the use cases than the technology aspect of it, nobody needs to come from I don't think I work with anybody. Most people learned in the job. They're not coming from a technical background at all. So I think it's more about really focusing on customers and the use cases, and stop talking so much about the how. Yeah. The how. Somebody is the expert on the how. The vendor that has the software, unless you're a software company, which is another avenue, right? You could be in a software company, but most people in tech are not in a software company. They're in companies that are using technology for something else. So I think my son decided, he's 12 and my daughter's 7. He decided that he hates coding. He doesn't know what coding is. He also decided that AI was going to come and kill us. That's the word in the school, which is concerning. I do need to have a conversation with him. I have another time. And my daughter thinks she likes to code because she used her Kano computer for 2 seconds. I'm not sure it's going to last. So I think it's just about really that STEM brain more than the technology. For example, I landed in computer science out of, the opposite of choosing. Like, I was like, no, I'm not going to be a lawyer. No, I'm not going to be a doctor. I don't like this. And I'm like, fine, for elimination, thank you. I'll be a computer science. And until half my career, I was like, this is not me. And then I was half, and I'm like, okay, I already did half. I should finish it. And my friends, all nerds, still thought that my interest in technology was the lamest because it was database and UI, and it's like, that's not hardcore. Hardcore is operating systems and networking, right? So, and who's not working in technology? Like, which of them are doing operating systems? Oh, none of them are doing operating systems. Right? It's applied science. So I think it's about the applied portion.
And
Sorry, that was a long answer.
yeah, no, it's great. I mean, I'd like to, Allison, like you run, like I think you said it was mostly men in your department. How, like, what do you do to try and encourage women and just also just maintain your own self in that, that tough environment? It might be a little tough.
I mean, it's hard, girl. Sometimes I go cry in the bathroom and I'm like, you get 10 minutes. You get 10 minutes and then you're going to move on and that's it. No, well, that's true. But I think that women are such, like, incredible creatures and people. And I've found that any team I've inherited, and this isn't the first time I've inherited a team of only men, when you start to pull in and bring in women, you start to recognize that the power of creating a more diverse space. And I think this kind of goes beyond gender. This hits on, like, race, background, economic background. And especially, like, again, I'm always going to pull this back to Lululemon. I've probably been there too long. I'm not making an app for like white men that are 45. Right. Or like 55. I'm trying to build an application that can represent such a beautiful sense of diversity. And I found that, like, when you index higher on understanding the purpose and understanding what our app is trying, or even, sorry, I oversee payments, fraud, and B2B. This applies to all of them. When you actually index higher on what is the value of what we're creating, then you build engineers and you build a team that is more representative of, like, a strategic understanding of what our goal is. You don't just end up with, like, and we all probably have them in our teams, we've all probably been them or we see them as, like, I just code, you say build A, I build A. But the reality with generative AI is that just end to end, I receive a ticket, I ingest it, and then I spit it out is no longer enough. And this is something that's beautiful about being able to bring more women. And just to be clear, I have 10 women on my team now, so hey, woo!
I think that deserves a round of applause.
Quite funny, because I used to have, like, women would reach out on LinkedIn to be like, I heard this is not a place to work at Lulu because it's all guys, but I mean, is it safe? And I'm just realistic. Like, well, I mean, there are still the systemic issues that exist for everyone and every woman, and I'm not going to sit here and pretend like I have rainbows and butterflies for you, but I am in a period of transition. I'm in a period of redefining a space that has needed redefinition. But I find, especially with, like, younger generations, there's so much investment in how the world can be better, how we can do better, and so much more than I was always so complacent about, like, the world just is the way it is. And I find tapping into that for, like, especially younger women in technology has honestly changed the face of our, like, Lululemon's app through that lens. And yeah, it's less on, like, you need to know Python or Java or Swift, and it's more just about you need to intimately care about what you're building and think strategically and creatively about how you're going to address that gap.
I love that.
I wanted to just add one thing on the how to encourage girls or women, young women, whatever it is. I think there's a few traditional ways, like, you know, doing the right thing in your companies, making sure that the diversity is the same, but there's whole departments right now devoted to that, so we just need to participate. But I think a less evident and very powerful way is really showing up. Like, it's just being brave. For example, coming to this is stunting at first. I have a lot of nerves the days leading to, and the more events I do, the better, more comfortable I'm getting. But being brave to show up and really, this is going to sound so cheesy, believing in yourself, because even yesterday, I was talking to my friends, again, computer science female, and I'm like, oh, my imposter syndrome is kicking me hard so much that I'm like, who am I to be in that panel to talk about AI? This is women in tech, they're so smart. It's like, it's showing up. Like, what I have is that I can. That's what I have. matter if I know more than anybody here. What matters is that I get up and do it, even if it's scary. And that is what shows people that it's doable. And then I put it in LinkedIn, and a bunch of women are going to see me, and they're like, oh. And I ran in the previous event into a few young women in the bathroom, and they are asking questions. Like, they're, oh my goodness, you did it. Like, they're like puzzled. And how do you fight the fear of going in there? So I think showing up and saying, yes, I am in technology. I'm not dead. I'm actually happy, etc. Like, you can say all of your good stories. That's extremely powerful.
That's awesome. Sandy, I think you wanted to add something, and then we've got a comment at the back. Go ahead, Sandy.
Yeah, just a very quick personal story to give hope to all of the parents who are trying to convince their kids to go into IT. I have a degree in music theory, and I started out playing the French horn. That's where I was. I was 31 when I discovered IT in the first place. And yeah, that was a sufficiently long time ago that I'm now senior, but there you go. We were just talking about this over the break. I had discovered ways of communicating using computers. Back in the early 90s, bulletin board systems, people don't even know what that means, but call it prehistoric social media. But nobody could tell me how it worked. And I went to the library, I couldn't find out how it worked. I asked everybody, nobody knew how it worked, and it's that curiosity was driving me crazy until one day I met someone who knows how it works. And I started asking questions, and he started mentoring, and then a couple of months into it, and this was like Cisco routing and network switching. It was like, why not start at the most obscure end of the stack? And he said, you've got skills now. Go out and get a job. And I'm like, who's going to hire me? I'm 31. It's all ballet company, orchestra. Oh, yes, Cisco routers. But I went out and I talked to a bunch of people until I found someone to take a chance. And I did 6 months in tech support so I could learn what Windows was. I was still using DOS. And then just went from there. And what I found was, first of all, I had to get over being surrounded by 16-year-old part-time boys who knew way more than I did. And the secret was about 2 months in, they found out that I know something that they wanted to know. And that always works. But I had to just say, okay, I am 10, 15 years older than everybody else. They've all been doing it longer. But the beauty of tech is that whatever you're working on, most of the time, especially if you're leading change, nobody's been working on it for 10 or 15 years. It didn't exist. And what I fell in love with about tech was the fact that nobody cared that I didn't know how to do A, B, C, and D that everybody else did. I could figure out how to do E by tomorrow, and that was the superpower. And so, if kids go into music or life sciences or whatever it is that interests them, political science, tech is all around us, and whether they go into a tech job or they go into a job that uses tech, those are really the only two options, unless you're, I don't know, even paving needs tech. So I can't think.
Surprisingly more tech than you think.
Yeah. So, if they want to go into something completely outside tech, don't give up. They'll figure it out. They'll find the example and be an example for them. And when the time's right, they'll stop saying, I'm artsy. What do I know about computers? And you'll find that they're actually running a platform of some kind.
That's awesome. Okay, I think there was a comment back here, and forgive us because I think your thought was a while ago.
Yeah, sorry. I just wanted to jump back on the skills, leadership, IT. And I have a leadership role in technology, and I don't know how to code whatsoever. I manage a bunch of people that do, and are doing a great job. I don't know anything technical, but I'm equipped with a lot of common sense. I'm equipped with a lot of courage to make hard decisions that nobody wants to make, and I'm equipped with strong project management and change management skills. So my job has been mainly to leverage technical people, but to help them work in a way that is culturally appealing to them and that resembles to high values such as collaboration and other things. But what I bring is the human side in the technical world. Imposter syndrome, 2 seconds, because then I was like, shut up, Alexia, we're done. If you're here, it's for a reason, but it's super weird to manage a technology team when you have zero in tech, right? But my point is this, even for the children, like, I feel like if people or the new generation follows their joy, it will lead them to where it leads them. And if anybody does something joyful, it will have a positive impact. In my team, I have a geologist. I have somebody that was a musician. And they all use transferable skills of common sense, analytics, detail orientation, and hard work, to get to the bottom of something. And it turns out if that something is tech, that's great. I'm sure they could be good at anything else that would throw their way. So I just wanted to encourage, if you don't have any tech background, that doesn't mean you don't have common sense or other skills you can bring that are, at the end of the day, just leadership, right? And that's applicable to any industry at the end of the day. And technology is a fun area to be in, for sure. So that's just what I wanted to complement with.
I love that. Oh, we have a couple comments.
Very much. I really appreciate all the insights that you've been sharing so far. I have a question about really kind of concretely dealing with microaggressions within a male-dominated developer culture. I'm just wondering, like, you know, you raised an amazing point earlier about, like, we need to actually get ready to respond in real time. When I think a lot of our reactions, I'll at least say mine, is that I freeze and I'm like, I get angry and then I'm like, okay, that's what I should have said. How can we kind of get into that habit to respond? But most importantly, what have you said in the moments where you had it in your, you know, in your pocket right away? Thanks so much.
So I'll start, and then maybe the ladies on could add, and or anybody in the audience. I think the biggest thing that you can do is, it's like, literally, wow, that wasn't cool. Like, and call it out, because what you're really reacting to is that. And so I think just starting there, and then sometimes you don't have to say too much, because I think once you say, hey, that's not cool, I think that people, then all of a sudden, people are self-reflective, right? Then all of a sudden they're like, oh, what did I say? Probably not the first time they said something like that. Probably. And then my trick is always like, now I'm going to just wait for you to say something. Why is it on me right? Like, let's all pause for a minute. And you said this terrible comment. Now why don't you explain yourself? Why don't you? And it gives me time, and it gives me to decide, am I going to now de-escalate the conversation? Maybe I'm going to have it at a later time. Or maybe it was enough just to say, right, and let people reflect on it. But I mean, it might also be like as a coach.
Approach, I always recommend that there's no need for you to respond in the moment, but when you are caught in a comment like that, you can literally say, hang on a second, I need a second to think about this. Like, I need a second to digest what you just told me. Like, you can take a pause. You don't have to respond right away, and there's nothing that says you can't go back at a later time and address it. Because I think that it's okay. It's okay to go back. You're caught off guard all the time. It's going to happen. You're never going to have, like, the best response all the time, but one, you can say, I need a second. Like, that can be one response. Wow, like, that wasn't cool. That can be another response, and then you can go back.
Panel?
One relating the other, just kind of like a segue. I really am a fan of, like, coming back to the, so I'll pull a story in here. I inherited this team of all men, and I had my first one-on-one with an engineer, and he was like, oh no, I don't report to you. I was like, no, you do. And he was like, no, I don't report to project managers. And I was like, oh, great. Okay, you know what? I'm gonna leave this meeting. I'm gonna give you a week before we have another one-on-one, and I'd like you to take a step back and reflect on where professionalism needed to occur in this meeting.
Nice.
I'm gonna let you
like that.
let you think about that. I'm gonna let you book me in, and then we'll talk about what we want to do and how we can actually move forward from when you realize what just happened here. And I was like, okay, have a good day. And then I let it go. Sometimes when people say things that are just, and I get it a lot, it's egregious. Like, that is egregious. I just really do feel, And I practiced that line, honestly, girl. Like, I genuinely, so my husband, Amardeep, will, like, see me in the backyard, and I'll be practicing my, like, boss-ass bitch lines, because sometimes they're just, like, they need to be ready, and I have a speech impediment, so I have to practice them, and that's one of my, like, boss-ass bitch lines. Sorry, guys. The other thing that I would say is, like, take the time to resolve your trauma. It sounds like someone's done something to you that is going to impact you. And what I'd really say is, like, spend an equal amount of time productively assessing what you can take away from that and leverage to move your career forward, as opposed to defining you as that, like, angry person who always indexes on, like, no, always indexes on, you know, protecting yourself, as opposed to being the, like, inclusive, thoughtful, creative woman that you are. Don't ever let these petty little things build up and take away from you. And please, please take the space to resolve that trauma so it doesn't define the rest of your career and the rest of your life.
That, nicely done. I do a lot of therapy. We have another question.
I wanted to say
Danielle.
I have a different approach, and again, I'm going to go into the cheesy. I'm Latin in Latin America, like, how to say this nicely. I feel that I'm very used to politically incorrect, to things that were wrong, and maybe I never care. So I feel like I have maybe a thick skin a little bit. I think I like to, when microaggressions hurt you, it's because we are coming from a place of disadvantage. So I think I like the idea of us thinking about ourselves as women in that way, somebody said before, with a niche superpower, as opposed to we're less and we're not going to let anybody tell us or face or something like that. It's more like if we feel already completely powerful, somebody says something. I'm not saying that we're going to let it go and let it happen. I'm just saying that it hurts because we feel less. But if we don't feel less, it doesn't really hurt. And the other thing that I wanted to say is that in Canada specifically, there's so much cultural diversity that I do want to give the chance for cultural mishaps. It happens to me quite a bit. And I want to give people the chance. I do tell it's easier when you're in a level playing field power-wise. Say my colleagues. I have told a couple of male colleagues, one, my partner, my close partner, I'm like, you're being rude or you're being condescending, or why are you I really don't think you should keep on this tone. It's not okay. But we have that trusting, close relationship, but that came over time, right? Like it's just giving the chance that it's not a chronic, mean thing, that is like something that they could learn and that they might be open to learn. Have my colleagues sometimes also ask me, do you think I was sexist? Do you think I shouldn't have done this? Or like they ask me because they want to be better. So I would not assume necessarily that it's malintention, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, thank you. We have a question over here, I think, or a comment. A comment.
A comment, and it's a little bit on the question about girls, and so I just wanted to bring it up. It's been a while, but I have 2 boys and 1 girl, and my girl loves coding, loves tech. She wants to be an engineer, and she draws on her. And as everybody was talking, I was thinking, why? I didn't really do anything. But one thing that I think maybe, I mean, we're all women here, and we're getting together to bring each other up, right? So I think maybe one thing, and it's putting it out there as an idea because I think maybe that's where it is getting girls in a girls-only environment to be doing this type of thing. So my girl was part of a Girl Guides group, and in that Girl Guides group, we made sure we brought I don't remember what they're called, but there's this handyman company that is women, and it's all women, and so we brought them in to teach the girls to nail a hammer. We had a coding class. We registered them for U of T coding and engineering courses, but it was all girls, and they were all comfortable doing it, and it didn't matter if they made a mistake. So anyway, just want to put that out there because I think just as we are getting together here, I think giving girls that space to be with girls and doing these things probably makes a difference.
I love that. And I'll just add, so I have a 16-year-old daughter who does want to go into computer science, and it's a little surprising because she's literally never coded a day in her life. But I also think part of it is disassociating math in which they learn in school from engineering. I think there's somehow a thought that like grade 5 math is somehow what engineering is. And I cannot tell you how many times I would say to my daughter, who clearly did not know grade 5 math, I was like, I don't know that either, but I didn't need to know that to graduate from computer science, because honestly, you don't. So I think now that she's going in grade 11, it's a bit different. I'll say to her, actually, you need to know that because you're going to use that in first year. But I do think it's like, let's separate the two. My 14-year-old boy never thought that, and he does want to go into cyber, he never thought that his crappy marks in math meant he couldn't go in. So I think that's one thing I'd say. Carol, is there a comment?
I have a quick question. So this has been mentioned before that not a lot of women are in tech and, not using ChatGPT in everyday life. And I think, well, hopefully, many of you would agree. I work in marketing, and marketing, like, we use ChatGPT like every single minute in our work. And I have this tendency of forgetting to use it. And I run a business with my husband, so he always tells me, just use ChatGPT, just ask, just put the prompt. And I'm like, no, it's okay, I'm going to do it myself. And he gets mad because ChatGPT is clearly better than me in a lot of things. And I recently realized this thing that I don't use ChatGPT because I don't want to rely on the aid and that, I'm not capable of doing it myself. And a lot of things I actually don't ask my husband or don't ask the team. I just do it myself. And sometimes it's not the best work. But I think it's me proving to myself that I can do it. So the question is, how do we change this mindset that we don't need to prove ourselves and do things from scratch, that sometimes it's okay to, rely on things?
Do you want to, Sandy or Al?
To process that, actually the last two, because I don't relate to those. I mean, the microaggressions, the women in tech thing, like I was well into my career before somebody said, how do you deal with the sexism? And I was like, what sexism? I just carry on. When I thought about it, it's like, oh, sexists and other ists, they're idiots. They're making decisions based on the wrong things. I just don't pay attention to them. And the same with, once you've done a bunch of stuff, I have trouble thinking back to like, well, why couldn't I do that myself? And I will do something like myself like that because it's a good mental exercise. Because ChatGPT is like anything else. If you give it an excellent prompt, it'll give you an excellent answer. And so you still, even using it, you're doing the thinking and you're judging what comes out, and you might have to go like 3 or 4 times before it gives you what you're looking for. But yeah, I don't feel that. So maybe.
So I think why don't we end, because we do have a workshop, and I want the tables to do a little bit of work in our workshop just to end it. So why don't we do this? One sentence from each of the panelists, one sentence on what you want to leave this room with about being a woman in technology. So I'll start to give you guys a moment to think about something, but I think it's have courage. Have courage to make the change that we know needs to be made. That would be my one line. Sandy, a one line or one sentence?
What one of my early mentors told me, the expert is the person in the room who knows 2% more about something than you do. You're almost equal anyway.
I like that.
I wish I was better at one-liners. I think that be intentional. If something happens to you, you experience something, invest in questioning yourself and questioning the structures you're in. You're going to have to pave the path to some degree in your career because you're a woman and there aren't that many of you in tech. So just trust your gut, be intentional.
I like it.
Got it.
That's a good one-liner. Come on.
That was like 4 sentences.
It ended in one line.
I'm stealing Christina's. I'm totally like stealing it. I'm going to use it in LinkedIn everywhere. AI plus HI equals ROI and rhymes. Like, I think that it's generic. It's not necessarily about women, but when you put a woman instead of human, you can see what it does, what kind of ROI is different there than any other human. What is unique about us? What is the extra that I'm bringing? And that's, to answer your question, that's what it is, right? It's what are you putting in? Anybody can ask ChatGPT. But the question is, what are you feeding ChatGPT? And what is each person in this room feeding ChatGPT? That's where you're going to add the value. It's not anybody can have the same content from the internet. It's the feeding, right?
Love it. Love it. So to my panelists, thank you so much.